The massive ship floated silently in the darkness of deep space, its hull covered in the dust of centuries. Tom Reed pressed his hand against the viewport of his research vessel, his eyes fixed on the ancient warship that stretched before him. It was just the first of many dozens, perhaps hundreds of similar vessels scattered across this forgotten sector of space. Another waste of time, Reed. The sharp voice of Dr. Wilson cut through the quiet observation deck. I don't understand why the Council keeps funding these pointless expeditions of yours. Tom didn't turn around. After 3 years of searching, he had finally found it. The legendary Ghost Fleet. Look at the size of that ship, Doctor. It's at least twice as large as our biggest modern battlecruiser. Size means nothing, Wilson scoffed, his tentacles waving dismissively. These relics are from a primitive age. Whoever built them didn't even have basic gravity manipulation technology. See those massive rotating sections. Primitive artificial gravity through centrifugal force. But Tom noticed something else. The strange, smooth patterns in the hull plating that didn't match any known construction technique. The way the metal seemed to absorb their scanning beams instead of reflecting them. Little details that didn't fit with a primitive civilization. The research team's small fleet of 5 vessels spread out among the ancient ships. Initial estimates suggested there were over 300 capital ships in the area, along with countless smaller craft. It was the largest collection of preserved ancient vessels ever discovered. Sir, one of the junior researchers, Jim, called out from his monitoring station. You need to see these energy readings. Tom floated over to the console, pushing off handholds in the zero-gravity environment. The scanner displays showed faint but steady power signatures coming from multiple ships in the fleet. That's impossible, Wilson said, looking over their shoulders. These ships are at least 1,000 years old. No power system could still be functioning after all this time. Unless they were meant to, Tom muttered. He keyed the ship-wide comm. All teams, proceed with extreme caution during your surveys. These vessels may not be as dead as they appear. Over the next 12 hours, the research teams carefully approached the nearest ancient warship. Its hull bore no markings they could recognize, no hint of which long-lost civilization had built it. But the construction was masterful. Even after centuries exposed to the harsh environment of space, the hull showed minimal damage. The first boarding team reported back regularly as they cut their way through an airlock. Tom insisted on joining the second wave of explorers entering the vessel. He had spent his entire career searching for this fleet. He wasn't about to stay behind now. The interior of the ship was dark and cold, their helmet lights casting long shadows through the corridors. Everything was logically laid out. No wasted space, no decorative elements, just pure functionality. It spoke of a military mindset, of builders focused on efficiency and purpose. The artificial gravity is still working, one of the technicians said in surprise as they moved deeper into the ship. That shouldn't be possible. They found their way to what appeared to be a bridge or command center. Unlike the sleek, automated control systems of modern vessels, this one had physical control stations, chairs, and view screens sized for humanoid operators. Look at this primitive interface, Wilson said, having insisted on joining them. Physical buttons and manual controls. Whoever built this was centuries behind our current technology. Tom ran his gloved hand over one of the control panels. The layer of dust was thinner than it should have been. And underneath, his light caught a familiar symbol partially hidden under centuries of grime. He carefully wiped away more of the dust, revealing a simple design that made his heart stop. There, stamped into the metal in clear, precise lines, was an icon he had seen in ancient historical records. An arrow pointing upward, surrounded by stars. Below it, barely legible, were letters in a long-dead language that every child still learned about in school. NASA. They're not primitive, Tom whispered. They're human. No one laughed this time, because everyone in that room knew the stories of humanity. The species that had vanished at the height of their civilization, leaving behind only mysteries and legends of their incredible achievements. And now, floating in the darkness of space, They had found where humanity's fleet had been waiting all along. 3 months after discovering the human fleet, Tom sat in the dimly lit conference room of the Galactic Council's Science Division. The holographic displays showed the latest attack. Another outer colony reduced to rubble by the raiders. 4 settlements destroyed in the past week alone, Admiral Parker said, his weathered face grim as he addressed the emergency meeting. Their ships just appear out of nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish before our defense fleet can respond. Tom watched the footage again. The raider vessels were unlike anything they'd seen before. Dark shapes that seemed to bend light around them, weapons that cut through the most advanced shields like they weren't even there. Our best ships are useless against them, the Admiral continued. They're using some kind of technology we can't even understand, let alone defend against. Dr. Wilson spoke up from his seat across the table. Perhaps if we stopped wasting resources on Reed's ancient shipyard project and focused on modern solutions. Those ancient ships, Tom interrupted, are still giving off power readings after 1,000 years. Their hull material absorbs our most powerful scans. Doesn't anyone wonder how humans built something that advanced? The room fell silent. In the 3 months since finding the NASA logo, Tom's team had discovered more evidence of human engineering throughout the fleet. But most of the ship's systems remained locked down, resistant to all their attempts to access them. The raiders hit another target this morning, Admiral Parker said quietly. It wasn't in the outer colonies this time. They struck New Genesis. Everyone stiffened. New Genesis was one of their most heavily defended core worlds, protected by 3 full battle fleets and the latest defensive technology. How bad? Someone asked. The Admiral's hands shook slightly as he pulled up the footage. 2 million dead. Our ships, they didn't even slow the raiders down. The entire defense fleet was destroyed in minutes. Tom thought about the massive human warships still floating silently in space. Let me take a team back to the fleet, he said. We found something yesterday. What looks like an AI core in the flagship, if we can activate it. More ancient toys. Wilson snapped. We need real solutions, not museum pieces. The Admiral raised his hand for silence. On the main display, another alert flashed red. The raiders had struck again, this time even closer to the galactic core. How long would you need? The Admiral asked Tom. A week, maybe 2. We've already decoded part of their computer language. The hardware is different from anything we use, but the basic principles. A loud boom shook the building, making everyone jump. Emergency sirens began wailing throughout the complex. They're here, the Admiral whispered, staring at his tactical display in horror. Raiders in the capital system. Multiple ships heading straight for the planet. Tom stood up. Give me a fast ship and a small crew. Let me try to activate that fleet. What do we have to lose at this point? The Admiral looked around the room at the frightened faces of the council members. Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. Go, he ordered Tom. Take whatever you need. Wilson, you go with him. You've been studying those ships too, even if you don't believe in them. But Wilson started to protest. That's an order, the Admiral snapped. The rest of you, emergency evacuation protocols. Move. Tom and Wilson raced through the chaos of the evacuating building toward the shuttle base. Through the windows, they could see dark shapes moving against the stars. Raider ships getting closer. This is insane, Wilson said as they ran. Those human ships are relics. They can't possibly help against something like this. Tom thought about the strange readings they'd gotten from the fleet, the systems that seemed to be waiting for something. Maybe that's exactly what they want everyone to think, he said quietly. As their shuttle broke atmosphere, racing for the safety of deep space, Tom watched the raiders beginning their attack on the capital. He knew they had only one chance now. Whatever humanity had left behind in that fleet, they had to find a way to wake it up. Because if they couldn't, there would be nothing left to save. The shuttle docked with the ancient human flagship just as another distress call echoed through their communication system. 3 more worlds had fallen to the raiders in the time it took them to reach the fleet. "The main computer core should be through here," Tom said, leading Wilson through the dark corridors. Their footsteps echoed in the artificial gravity that still functioned perfectly after a millennium. "Even if you're right about this AI core," Wilson said, his earlier arrogance replaced by exhaustion, "how could it possibly help? These ships err." He stopped talking as they entered the central computer chamber. The room was massive, far larger than any modern ship would dedicate to computing systems. And unlike the rest of the ship, it was softly lit with a pale blue glow. "It's been waiting," Tom whispered. "All this time, it's been waiting for someone to find it." The walls were lined with crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. At the center of the room, a holographic interface flickered to life as they approached. Symbols and text in the ancient human language scrolled across it. "Look at this," Tom said, pointing to one of the crystal matrices. "These aren't just computer cores. They're quantum processors." The humans weren't using digital computing at all. Wilson stepped closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming his skepticism. "That's impossible. Quantum computing on this scale would require technology far beyond what we have now," Tom finished. He touched one of the control panels, and the holographic display suddenly expanded, filling the room with a 3-dimensional star map. Red dots appeared throughout the map, locations of raider attacks. Then blue lines began connecting them, forming patterns that neither of them had noticed before. "They're not random attacks," Wilson said, staring at the pattern. "They're systematic. The raiders are cutting off specific sectors, isolating them before." More text scrolled across the display. Tom read it aloud. "Pattern match confirmed. Threat analysis. 99.9% probability. Harbinger Scout Force." "Harbinger Scout Force?" Wilson asked. The AI responded by showing them more data, records from humanity's own encounters with the raiders centuries ago. The images showed the same dark ships, the same devastating weapons. "They fought them before," Tom said softly. "The humans knew the raiders would come back. That's why they left this fleet here." The holographic display shifted again, showing detailed scans of the fleet's weapons systems. What they had thought were primitive projectile launchers were actually mass drivers powered by micro-singularities. The seemingly basic armor plating contained layers of smart metal that could adapt to any weapon. "These ships," Wilson said, his voice shaking, "they're not ancient technology at all. They're just disguised to look that way." More data flowed across the screens. Tactical information, weapon specifications, shield frequencies. Everything they would need to fight the raiders. "But where did the humans go?" Wilson asked. "Why leave all this behind?" The AI's answer appeared in simple text. "To prepare. What you face is only the beginning. We will return when the true threat emerges." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. The raiders aren't the real enemy, are they? They're just the first wave. The ship's systems began powering up around them, lights and engines that had slept for centuries coming back to life. Through the viewport, they could see other ships in the fleet starting to awaken. "Alert," the AI displayed. "Multiple Harbinger vessels detected approaching this sector. Defense protocols initiating. Human oversight required for full activation." "Human oversight?" Wilson asked. "But there aren't any humans left." Tom looked at his hand, then at the DNA scanner that had just emerged from the control panel. "Maybe that's not entirely true," he said. "My grandmother used to tell stories about our family's ancient heritage, but I never believed." He pressed his palm against the scanner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire room lit up with brilliant blue light, and a new message appeared. "Human genetic markers confirmed. Security protocols disabled. Full weapons and defense systems online. Welcome back, children of Earth." The fleet had awakened, and the raiders were about to learn why humans had been both feared and respected across the galaxy. The bridge of the human flagship came alive around Tom and Wilson as systems activated one by one. Holographic displays sprang up from previously hidden projectors, showing the positions of both the ancient fleet and the approaching raider vessels. "How many ships can you control?" Wilson asked, watching in amazement as more and more of the fleet lit up in the tactical display. Tom stood at the central command position, where the DNA scanner had recognized him. "The AI says I can direct the entire fleet, but it recommends starting with just the flagship. We need time to learn the systems." A warning flashed across the main display. 3 raider ships had just appeared at the edge of their sensor range. "They've detected our power-up sequence," Wilson said, checking the readings. "They're moving to attack position." Tom took a deep breath and placed his hands on the control interface. The ship's AI responded instantly to his thoughts, showing him weapon systems that defied everything he knew about physics. "Launch defensive drones," he ordered, and dozens of small craft deployed from hidden bays along the flagship's hull. Each one was barely larger than an escape pod, but their power readings were off the charts. The raiders opened fire first. Their energy weapons, which had cut through modern shields like paper, splashed harmlessly against the flagship's defense field. "Impossible," Wilson whispered, checking the shield strength. The defense screen didn't even flicker. "How?" "The shield isn't blocking their attacks," Tom said, understanding flowing into his mind from the ship's eye. "It's redirecting the energy into our weapon systems. The humans built these ships to use their enemy's strength against them." The raider vessels split up, moving to surround them. They were clearly confused by their weapons' lack of effect, but they pressed the attack anyway. "Time to show them what humanity left behind," Tom said. Targeting systems online. The ship's quantum targeting computer locked onto all 3 raiders simultaneously. The weapons that had appeared primitive and outdated transformed before their eyes. Gun barrels shifted and realigned, revealing sophisticated energy channels beneath their basic exterior. "Fire," Tom commanded. 3 precise beams of light, so focused they were almost invisible, lanced out from the flagship. Each beam struck a raider ship at exactly the same moment. There was no explosion, no dramatic destruction. The raider vessels simply stopped existing. "What kind of weapon was that?" Wilson asked, his voice shaking. The AI displayed the technical specifications. "Quantum destabilization cannon. Targets the specific quantum frequency of enemy matter and removes it from our space-time continuum." More alerts flashed. A full raider battle fleet had detected their success and was now moving to engage. 20 ships this time, including their largest class of destroyer. "We should retreat," Wilson said. "Call for reinforcements from the Council." But Tom smiled as he felt the ship's systems fully integrating with his commands. "No, the AI says this is the perfect chance to test the fleet's real capabilities." Activating secondary vessels now. 2 more human ships powered up beside them, their systems linking seamlessly with the flagship. Their previously simple-looking hulls shifted and flowed like liquid metal, revealing their true forms: sleek, deadly vessels of war. "Multiple targeting solutions available," the AI reported. "Enemy vessels analyzing at 0% threat level. Awaiting human command." Tom looked at the tactical display, remembering all the worlds the raiders had destroyed, all the lives they had taken. "Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity's legacy. All ships, weapons free. Fire at will." The space around them lit up as the 3 human vessels engaged the entire raider fleet, and for the first time since the attacks began, the raiders learned what it meant to be afraid. Because they finally understood the truth. They hadn't found some forgotten relics of a dead civilization. They had awakened humanity's guardians, left behind to protect the galaxy until their creator's return. And the guardians were angry. Emergency alerts blared through the human flagship's bridge as Tom studied the tactical display. The raiders had launched their largest attack yet. Over 200 ships were descending on New Alexandria, the most populated world in the Galactic Council's territory. 10 million civilians in the capital city alone, Wilson said, his face pale as he watched the raider fleet approach the planet. The planetary shields won't hold against that many ships. Tom's hands moved across the control interface. In the 3 days since their first battle, he had learned more about human technology than he'd thought possible. Wake up the rest of the fleet. All of it. All of it, Wilson asked. But the AI said managing that many ships at once could be dangerous for a novice. We don't have a choice, Tom cut him off. Signal the council. Tell them to hold out for 10 more minutes. Around them, the vast human fleet came to life. Hundreds of ships, their disguised forms flowing into their true shapes, formed up around the flagship. Each vessel's quantum systems linked with Tom's commands, their combined power making his mind buzz with potential. The AI's warning flashed in red. Caution. Neural load at 70% capacity. Risk of cognitive overload. Tom ignored it. On the tactical display, the raiders had begun their attack on New Alexandria. The planet's modern defense fleet fought bravely but hopelessly against the overwhelming force. All ships, maximum speed, Tom ordered. The human fleet moved as one, crossing light years in moments using drive systems that bent space itself. They emerged from their jump right in the middle of the battle. The raiders, caught by surprise, scattered in confusion at the sight of hundreds of unknown vessels appearing among them. Target their command ships first, Tom commanded. The AI distributed targeting data across the fleet. Fire. Space lit up with weapons that defied physics. Quantum beams erased raiders from existence. Gravity weapons crushed their ships into singularities. Time displacement fields aged some vessels to dust, while others found themselves frozen in moments of eternity. They're trying to regroup, Wilson reported. Moving to surround us. Tom smiled grimly. That's exactly what we wanted. All ships, activate the Gordian Protocol. The human fleet suddenly shifted position, each ship moving in perfect coordination. They formed a complex geometric pattern that the AI had shown him, a formation that humans had perfected centuries ago. Pattern complete, the AI announced. Quantum resonance field activated. Energy coursed between the human ships, connecting them in ways that modern science couldn't explain. The raiders fired everything they had, but their weapons vanished into the quantum field, making the human fleet stronger. Return fire, Tom ordered. Full spectrum attack. Every human ship fired at once. But instead of individual weapons, their combined energy formed a massive wave of quantum disruption. It swept through space like a tide of unreality, and every raider ship it touched simply ceased to be. In the silence that followed, Wilson stared at the tactical display in shock. That's impossible. You just destroyed 150 ships in less than a second. No, Tom said, feeling the truth through his connection with the AI. We didn't destroy them. We removed them from this universe entirely. The humans found a way to fight that didn't just defeat their enemies. It erased any trace that they ever existed. The remaining raider ships fled in panic, jumping away to anywhere that wasn't near the human fleet. On the planet below, cheers erupted as people realized they had been saved. Signal from the Galactic Council, Wilson said. They're asking for a meeting with our ancient and honored human representatives. Tom looked at the fleet around them, its true power finally revealed to the galaxy. Tell them we accept. I think it's time everyone learned the truth about humanity's gift to the galaxy. Because now he understood. These ships weren't just weapons. They were a message, a promise that humanity had left behind. A promise that no matter how dark space became, someone would always be watching, ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The great council chamber fell silent as Tom stood before the assembled representatives of every known species. Above them, a hologram showed the human fleet in formation, its true form now visible to all. 3 days ago, you laughed at these ships, Tom said, his voice carrying across the chamber. Today, you want to know their secrets. But first, you need to know the truth about humanity. He touched the control panel, and the ship's AI began sharing data across all screens in the chamber. The images showed Earth, humanity's homeworld, as it was 1,000 years ago. Humans didn't go extinct, Tom explained. They didn't lose a war, or die from disease, or destroy themselves as many believed. They evolved. The screens showed a series of calculations and scientific discoveries that made even the most advanced council scientists gasp in surprise. 1,000 years ago, humanity made a discovery that changed everything, Tom continued. They found evidence of the raiders, or as they called them, the harbingers. But more than that, they discovered what came after the raiders. Wilson, standing beside Tom, pointed to a new set of data appearing on the screens. These energy signatures, they're unlike anything we've ever seen. The raiders aren't the real threat, Tom said. They're just the scouts, testing each galaxy's defenses. Behind them comes something far worse, something that even humanity at their peak wasn't ready to face directly. The AI displayed a simulation of an entire galaxy going dark, consumed by something that defied description. Then another galaxy and another. Humanity knew they needed more time to prepare, Tom explained. More time to develop the weapons and defenses that would be needed when the true enemy arrived. But they also knew they couldn't leave the younger races defenseless. The screens showed the construction of the fleet, revealing how each ship contained technology far beyond their apparent capabilities. So they built this fleet, disguised it to look primitive, and left it behind as a guardian, Tom said. The ships were designed to wake up when they were needed most, to protect the galaxy until humanity was ready to return. Return from where? One of the council members asked. Tom smiled. From the place they evolved to. Humanity didn't die out. They transcended physical form entirely. They'd moved their entire civilization into a higher dimension of space, where they could develop and grow without limits. The AI showed new data, subtle energy readings from seemingly empty regions of space, patterns that suggested activity just beyond normal reality. They're still out there, watching, Tom said. The raiders triggered this fleet's awakening, but humans knew the raiders would eventually come. They planned for it centuries ago. Every weapon, every defense system in these ships was specifically designed to counter raider technology. But how did they know? Wilson asked. How could they predict the raiders' capabilities so perfectly? Because humanity had fought them before, Tom revealed. In another galaxy, another time. The raiders aren't just testing us. They're hunting humans. But this time, humanity was ready for them. The AI displayed one final set of data, coordinates appearing all across the galaxy map. Hundreds of other fleets, hidden and waiting, just like this one. This isn't the only fleet, Tom said. There are others, scattered throughout the galaxy, each protecting different sectors of space. And now that this one has awakened, the others will soon follow. The council chamber erupted in excited discussion as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't abandoned them. They had been protecting them all along, waiting in the higher dimensions until their children were ready to understand the truth. The raiders will return, Tom said over the noise. And when they do, they'll bring their masters with them. But humanity left us everything we need to fight back. Now we just have to learn how to use it. Because the greatest gift humanity had left behind wasn't just the fleet. It was the chance for the younger races to prove themselves worthy of joining their ancient guardians in the higher realms. 1 month after the revelation about humanity's true fate, Tom stood on the bridge of the flagship watching history unfold. All across the galaxy, hidden human fleets were awakening. Each one responded to the call, emerging from their centuries-long slumber to take up their protective positions. Final count is in, Wilson said, looking at the tactical display with awe. Over 10,000 capital ships spread across every sector of known space. The humans didn't just leave us a fleet. They left us an entire defense network. The AI displayed the positions of each awakened fleet. Together, they formed an intricate pattern across the galaxy, creating overlapping fields of protection that left no world vulnerable. Signal from the outer rim, one of the council operators reported. The raiders have returned. Nearly 1,000 ships this time. But Tom didn't feel afraid anymore. Through his connection to the fleet's AI, he could sense the quiet confidence radiating from the human ships. "Show me," he ordered. The tactical display shifted, showing the massive raider fleet approaching. But this time, something was different. Behind the raiders, space itself seemed to twist and bend, as if something vast was trying to break through into their reality. "They'd brought their masters," Tom said quietly. Just as humanity predicted. The void cracked open, and enormous shapes began emerging from the dimensional rift. They defied description. Entities of pure energy and malevolent intelligence that made the raiders look primitive by comparison. "That's what humanity saw coming," Wilson whispered. "That's why they had to evolve, to fight these things on their own level." Tom nodded, feeling new information flowing from the AI. All fleets initialized the Unity protocol. Across the galaxy, every human ship moved in perfect synchronization. Their quantum fields linked across light years of space, forming connections that shouldn't have been possible. The seemingly primitive hulls transformed one final time, revealing their ultimate configuration. "By the stars," Wilson breathed. "The ships, they're creating some kind of network across the entire galaxy." Tom smiled as understanding filled his mind. Not just a network, a bridge. Space rippled around them as the human ships activated their final protocol. The energy beings screamed in frequencies that shattered sensors as they recognized what was happening. The raiders turned to flee, but it was too late. Reality itself split open, but this time it wasn't the dark void of the raiders' masters. This tear in space glowed with golden light, and through it came something the galaxy hadn't seen in 1,000 years. Humanity had returned. They weren't physical beings anymore. They existed as patterns of pure energy and thought. Their consciousness evolved beyond the limits of normal space. But their purpose was unchanged: to protect the younger races until they too were ready to evolve. The energy beings tried to retreat, but humanity engaged them on their own level. The battle that followed couldn't be seen by normal eyes, taking place across multiple dimensions of reality. The human ships acted as anchor points, allowing their creators to manifest their full power in normal space. It was over in moments. The raiders and their masters vanished, not destroyed but cast out of the galaxy entirely by forces they couldn't comprehend. In the aftermath, Tom felt a new presence in his mind, not the AI this time, but something far more vast and ancient. The voice of humanity itself spoke through the fleet's network, sharing their message with all the worlds of the galaxy. "We had to leave to become strong enough to protect you," the voice said, "but we never abandoned you." The fleet was more than just a defense system. It was a test. Those who could understand it, who could see past appearances to recognize true advancement, would prove themselves ready for the next step. Tom looked at Wilson and the other council members on the bridge. "Ready for what?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Ready to join us," humanity answered. "Ready to evolve beyond the physical and help us protect all the galaxies yet to come." The raiders were only the beginning. There are more threats in the darkness between dimensions, more young races that will need guidance and protection. The fleet wasn't just humanity's gift to us, Tom realized. It was their invitation. Because in the end, the greatest legacy humanity left behind wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was the chance for others to follow their path, to grow beyond their limits, and to join them as guardians of all that lived and would ever live. The age of hiding was over. The age of unity had begun.